We have to win the information operations campaign. And the last thing, and I think the thing that's most important, we have to reduce their sphere of influence. Europe is in trouble. America is in trouble because we are allowing something to come in and metastasize here in this country that is the complete antithesis of who we are and what we believe in. And for whatever reason, we don't want to confront it. I've been to these countries and I've stood up and I've fought to make sure that freedom can come to Islamic lands. And we want people to come here to America, be a part of this great 240-year experiment in liberty, freedom, and democracy. But we want you to be a part of that experiment. We want you to assimilate. We want you to accept this American culture. We don't want you to come here and preach and proselytize something that will undermine us as a constitutional republic. And we have to be willing to stand up and say that, or else their sphere of influence will continue to grow all across Western civilization. You know, if you know a little bit about your history, after Muhammad came back and he won the Battle of the Trenches, he took Mecca in 628 AD. He sent a letter to the emperor of the Byzantine Empire, Heraclius, and he gave him three alternatives. He said, convert. He said, you can pay a submission tax known as a jizya, or we will make war upon you and we will kill you. That is in the hadith of Muhammad. And I will tell you, you need to study, you need to understand that, because if you don't understand, your enemy, as Sun Tzu will say, you'll never be successful in any battle. This is exactly the same thing that ISIS told Christians in northern Iraq when they took over different lands, and the Yazidis. Let me read you a letter. Because some people tend to believe that, you know, I'm just making some of this stuff up. You know, some people come up with these words like Islamophobia and all this type of stuff. I don't have no phobia of anything. I don't have any fear of the unknown. I'm a student of history. And history has trends. I'm going to read from you a letter that was written by Thomas Jefferson and John Adams to John Jay on the 28th of March, 1786. Now, understand this. This letter was written by two people that were going to be the second and third president of the United States of America, to the person that was going to be the first Chief Justice of our Supreme Court. And this was after they sat down with the ambassador to Tripoli, the day of Algiers. And this is the report they sent back to John Jay. We took the liberty to make some inquiries concerning the grounds of their present pretensions to make war upon nations who had done them no injury, and observed that we considered all mankind as our friends who had done us no wrong, nor had given us any provocation. The ambassador answered us that it was founded on the laws of their prophet, that it was written in their Quran, that all nations who should not have acknowledged their authority were sinners, that it was their right and duty to make war upon them wherever they could be found, and to make slaves of all they could take as prisoners, and that every Muslim who should be slain in battle was sure to go to paradise. That it was a law that the first who boarded an enemy's vessel should have one slave, more than his share with the rest, which operated as an incentive to the most desperate valor and enterprise. That it was the practice of their corsairs to bear down upon a ship, for each sailor to take a dagger in each hand and another in his mouth, and leap on board, which so terrified their enemies that very few ever stood against them. That he verily believed the devil assisted his countrymen, for they were almost always successful. We took time to consider and promised an answer, but we can give him no other than that the demands exceed our expectations and that of Congress, so much that we can proceed no further without fresh instructions. Because the Barbary pirates were asking for ransom from our fledgling young nation, who had lost the protection of the British Navy out on the high seas, and therefore our merchant ships were being attacked and American citizens were being enslaved. And we were going to Holland to try to find enough money to continue to pay them. When John Adams became president, he continued on with paying the ransoms, which continued to increase and increase and increase. But Thomas Jefferson, the author of the Declaration of Independence, said no more. Thomas Jefferson built up our Navy, our first 4 ships, our first expeditionary Navy. Thomas Jefferson built up a Marine Corps. And isn't it odd that that first verse, the shores of Tripoli, that was where Marine First Lieutenant Presley O'Bannon landed with his contingent of Marines, and they earned that nickname of Leathernecks because of the leather tunic that they wore. See, history has a way of repeating itself. But think about it. What I just read to you from Jefferson and Adams to John Jay. Today, would you call Jefferson and Adams Islamophobes? Because they were repeating and reporting exactly what the enemy said was their motivation? So why do we do it today? Jefferson sent the response that they understood, and it ended. Sooner or later, we're going to have to find our courage and send a response that they can understand so that it will end for the future generations of Americans that are sitting here before me and our children and our grandchildren. God bless you all. What are your questions?